Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are our headlines from across the continent this evening. A change of the guard in Tanzania as the country's first female president is sworn in. Samia Suluhu Hassan takes over from President John Magufuli, who died from an illness shrouded in mystery. More on that at the top of the show. Congo-Brazzaville is set to vote in presidential elections this Sunday. Denis Sassou Nguesso is aiming to extend his decades-long hold on power, with the opposition largely sidelined and his two main rivals sentenced to 20 years forced labour. And in Nigeria, we'll take a look at the work of two young fashion designers who are weaving contemporary designs into traditional West African fabrics. Thanks for watching. Now, mystery surrounds the death of John Magufuli in Tanzania. According to the government, the president died of heart complications on Wednesday, but the main opposition leader says Magufuli died of COVID-19 last week. Now, the Tanzanian leaves behind a complex legacy. A popular no-nonsense attitude and anti-graft stance was widely praised by other leaders in East and Southern Africa, but he was criticised for his authoritarianism and indeed for his highly sceptical attitude to the pandemic. Now, on Friday, his vice president stepped into his shoes. Samia Suluhu Hassan will finish out Magufuli's second term, set to run until 2025. She urged the country to unite and look forward with hope. Catherine Viet has more.
With the Quran in her right hand, Samia Suluhu Hassan took the oath of office. With her swearing in, Hassan has become Tanzania's first female president. She used her speech to call for unity in the face of adversity.
Ni wakati wa kufarijiana, kuoneshana upendo, udugu wetu, kudumisha amani yetu, kuenzi utu wetu, uzalendo wetu, nguvu zetu za pamoja.
The 61-year-old is affectionately known as Mama Samia, a sign of respect in Tanzanian culture. She was first elected to public office in 2000 and rose through the ranks, eventually becoming President John Magufuli's running mate in 2015. It was Hassan who went on television to announce his death on Wednesday. All eyes are now on Hassan to see how she deals with the pandemic. Her predecessor was known for downplaying the seriousness of the virus. The mood is optimistic.
Najivunia Mama Samia kuapishwa kuwa rais kwa sababu sisi wamama tunaweza.
Ndio maana kamweka karibu naye tangia mwanzo. Kwa hiyo hatuna wasiwasi naye kwamba tunaona kama ni mama ambaye ni mchapakazi na anaweza shughuli hiyo.
Hassan will finish Magufuli's second term ending in 2025. Her first order of business, the appointment of a new vice president. The Central Committee of the ruling party has announced it will meet Saturday to discuss candidates.
And John Magufuli will be buried next Thursday in his home village of Chato in the west of Tanzania. His body will be taken to Uhuru Stadium in Dar es Salaam for public viewing on Sunday, and a second public viewing has been scheduled in the capital, Dodoma, on Monday. The countdown is on to Sunday's presidential election in Congo-Brazzaville. President Denis Sassou Nguesso is seeking a fourth term as head of state, having ruled already for 36 years. Critics have accused him of cracking down on dissent by arresting dozens of opponents in recent years. The most famous example is that of Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko, a former presidential candidate. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison for allegedly undermining state security in 2018. Journalists and peaceful activists have also been threatened and arrested for speaking out against the regime. Our team in Brazzaville report.
Ça, c'est le bureau de mon père. Ça, ce sont ses affaires.
Ray's father is the editor-in-chief of Sel Piment, a satirical magazine based in Brazzaville. He was arrested on the 2nd of February while in hospital. Authorities accuse him of defamation for publishing this story about the alleged embezzlement of public funds by the wife of President Sassou Nguesso's nephew.
C'est pas normal d'arrêter un journaliste comme ça. Dans cet état en plus, on a suspendu le journal, on a arrêté le journaliste. Les deux choses en même temps à la fois, ça ne se fait jamais.
The suspension of the magazine has since been lifted, but Raymond Malonga remains in prison pending his trial. This despite Congolese law not allowing a journalist to be detained in a defamation case, except under specific circumstances which do not apply in this case. For members of Halbol, a pro-democracy citizens movement, the arrest of Malonga is hardly an exception. They themselves have been arrested or imprisoned for taking part in anti-government protests. They denounce a climate of repression in the Congo.
L'expérience de Halbol le montre. Lorsqu'on a un discours contraire, on est menacé, on est arrêté, on est mis à l'ombre pour que votre opinion, vos propos ne puissent pas contaminer les autres.
The government, meanwhile, accuses some activists of trying to destabilize the country and insists it wants to avoid a return to the civil war of 1997.
Nous avons connu un état de guerre extrêmement dramatique où nous voyons des cadavres qui jonchaient les rues. Et donc, nous ne souhaitons pas, le président de la République, son gouvernement, les institutions en place ne souhaitent pas que nous retombions dans ce type de difficultés.
Some 2 million Congolese voters are expected to go to the polls on Sunday. President Denis Sassou Nguesso is seeking a 4th term in office.
Time now for some other news stories in brief. The US President Joe Biden is dispatching Senator Chris Coons to Ethiopia to meet with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Washington wants to convey its grave concerns about the growing humanitarian crisis and human rights abuses in the Tigray region. Coons will also discuss the situation with African Union leaders. Now, today, Friday, marks 60 years since the signing of the Evian Accords, a peace deal between France and Algeria that ended Algeria's War of Independence. A ceremony took place in Paris at the National Memorial for the Algerian War. That was followed by another ceremony at the Arc de Triomphe, where the Eternal Flame was relit. The first batch of COVID-19 vaccine doses has arrived in Djibouti. They were provided to the East African nation by China in foreign aid. A handover ceremony was held at the airport in the attendance of the Chinese ambassador and Djibouti's foreign and health ministers. Now, Lake Victoria in East Africa is increasingly and visibly impacted by climate change. Water levels have risen, putting residents of villages on the banks of the lake at risk of flooding. Nicolas Germain takes a look at the impact along one stretch of coastline in Tanzania.
For some Tanzanians, living on the shores of Lake Victoria has become a nightmare. Authorities said the water level reached a record 13.42 metres a few days ago. The previous record for Africa's biggest lake was established in 1964. The floods here have lasted for months.
Sasa hivi hapa majani zetu, ndugu zetu wengi sana sasa hivi hatupo nao, wengi wamehama makazi yao na wengine kwa sababu ya uwezo wa chini tumeshindwa kuhama kwa sababu hatuna uwezo kujenga makazi mengine na tumetegemea huku.
The flooding has brought new challenges for residents who have nowhere else to go.
Afu kuna kama wadudu hatari wanaingia, kama ni ndani, kama ni hapo hivi kuna wadudu hapo, maji yanavyoingia ndani na wadudu baadhi wanaingia kwa maji yanatoa asili namna hiyo.
Environmentalists say climate change has worsened the situation. They have put forward several solutions. They say trees should be planted along rivers and channels should be built to carry floodwater away from the lake. It would be sent towards reservoirs to use for livestock and irrigation. Another policy would be to construct dams to regulate the amount of water flowing into Lake Victoria.
Now, a pair of young Nigerian designers have decided to break rank. Instead of producing generic clothes, they've chosen to work on traditional textiles using artisanal techniques. They're part of a trend that aims to use traditional Nigerian materials to create modern outfits. Wasim Cornet has more.
This Lagos workshop is humming with the sound of sewing machines as Samia Benitie's designs come to life.
My name is Samia Benitier and I'm a fashion designer based in Lagos, Nigeria. And I work with a traditional hand-woven Nigerian fabric called ashoke.
Ashoke is a hand-woven cloth indigenous to the Yoruba people. Historically, it was used on special occasions, and Benitier wanted to make sure the younger generation is also proud of that heritage.
We're sort of preserving the culture, that we've watched all our lives in front of us. Weddings have tons and tons of ashoke, so we're sort of trying to just do it anew and continue doing it and sort of teach it to the younger generation. It's something to be proud of. It's something to sort of want to wear.
Fellow Lagos designer Lisa Folawiu specializes in a different kind of cloth. This one is called Ankara, and she's called her collection Badkara, as it incorporates batik designs into the final product.
It's always about using our local fabrics in addition to silks and other fabrications or textures, and creating modern silhouettes and creating fashion that I feel is beyond boundaries.
And businesses have responded to this shift in African fashion.
The industry is growing to be more relevant to people's lifestyles. And now we're thinking of African luxury in terms of how we live on a day-to-day basis. So it's not just occasionally, it's not just for celebratory moments, it's also for our everyday moments.
This new generation of designers also hopes the promotion of these clothes and patterns will help empower local artisans and ensure the know-how continues to be passed on.
That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching.
Special events.
On the 15th of March, it will be 10 years since the beginning of the war in Syria. All this week, we'll be taking a look back over the past decade. We'll explain how Syria became a battlefield pitting foreign powers against each other. And what of Bashar al-Assad? A decade ago, his days were thought to be numbered, yet he survived. Our correspondents in the region will revisit the last 10 years of war. Our reporters who covered the conflict will also give it their take on things across our 4 networks. Stay tuned to France 24 and France24.com.